Brother Justice and Koteswar Singh, Brother Justice Manish Pitale from Mumbai High Court, Brother Aniruddha Mai, Gujarat High Court, on dais Mr. Avinash Rana, Mr. Prashant Kumar, President Bar Association of India, Amarjit Singh Chandok, President-elect, Bar Association of India, Mr. Sham Diwan, President Bar Association of India and President Law Asia, Ms. Rachna Srivastav, Vice President Bar Association of India, Ms. Aninditi Pujari, Vice President, and Amarjit Singh Bedi, Honorary General Secretary. Brother and sister judges, esteemed dignitaries of the dais, members of the International Legal Fraternity, Federation of Bar Association, gracious ladies and gentlemen. Though it's a privilege to be here in this acclaimed gathering, but first, as Prashant said about this emblem, I was also thinking for it. This emblem says, Dharma Sansthapanartha hai. For establishing dharma. When we thought about this religious site, it's a dharma. Raj Dharma explained, every dharma explained. When I go to the emblem of the Supreme Court, what is written? Yato dharmas tato jaya. Wherever a dharma. Now why the importance of this dharma, why this bar has adopted this, and why Supreme Court adopted for this? As and when we brought Constitution of India, our dharma is the rule of law. And when our dharma is the rule of law, then we have to thought, we have to imbibe, we have to live, and we have to establish rule of law. None else. Once we are discussing on a topic, this is global economic governance and principle of rule of law, focusing economic governance and cross-border terrorism. If we see this, the object behind appears to be how economically we can develop ourselves. Second, what is the hurdle? Primarily appears to be cross-border terrorism and how it can be eradicated. This is by way of rule of law. Just I divided into three parts of this. I was thinking and how it can be. If we see for Indian perspective, here I have came to know that 5 continents, 30 countries participating. If we see with Indian perspective, then India in 79th Independence Day and prior to that gave slogan Make in India, but thinking further for 100 years, and that is we are thinking for that how we can develop with rule of law and peace. Once we thought, when we go for global economic governance, then the rule of law is a matter of immense significance. Kofi Annan, the former UN Secretary General, said, globalization has made us dependent on one another, and we cannot afford to ignore each other's problem. So now I am coming on this. How interdependence we can be removed, and that can be by way of attendees as present today, that of 5 continents and 300 countries. The only thing how we can, what is fear? is fear itself. When we can eradicate it, no fear. When we go to this, then instability of fear of economic collapse on the subject, fear of terrorism, and undermines both governance and justice. So, how it can be removed? That is by way of fairness, peace, by maintaining the rule of law. Once we talk about economic governance as first topic and first head of this part, at the heart of today's discussion lies the ideas that effective economic governance is essential, not only for ensuring prosperity, but also for fostering a just and peaceful world. When governed by the principles of fairness, transparency, and accountability, these systems hold the power to uplift societies, foster innovation, and facilitate international cooperation. Yes, yet these structures, vital to global stability, are often fragile, subject to external threats, one of the most disruptive being the rise of cross-border terrorism. I say this cross-border terrorism is a direct threat of our economic governance. Brother Koteshwar Singh gave the examples, but I am not going to that. If we go to the cross-border terrorism, it is not merely a threat of national security, it is a direct assault on the very foundation of the global economic stability. Terrorist organizations increasingly operate a borderless world, leveraging complex financial networks and span across nations. The consequences of their action are far-reaching, destabilizing entire economics, undermine investor confidence, and disrupting trade flows. Terrorism, particularly when funded through illicit means such as money laundering and exploitation of global financial system, diverts resources away from critical areas like development, infrastructure, and public services. These acts of terror are not confident by physical violence, they strike at the heart of economic systems that are essentially for stability, growth, and human flourishing. Then what is the role of the rule of law in combating this? This is where whenever we follow the principle of rule of law, then this can be covered up. It prevents the abuses of power, protects human rights, and internal cooperation. When I go with Indian perspective, the Mahatma Gandhi said, terrorism and deception are weapons not too strong, but of the weak. We have to thought of it. Why? Mahatma Gandhi said so. Only we have to follow the rule of law. When we talk about Indian Supreme Court, in the judgment of the People's Union versus Civil Liberty in Union of India, 2004 SCC, when the provisions of the Pota, byrees of the Pota was under challenge, the Supreme Court made certain observations in that. The protection of human rights under the rule of law is essential in prevention of terrorism. If human rights are violated in the process of combating terrorism, it will be self-defeating. To maintain the delicate balance of protecting core human rights is the responsibility of the court. Supreme Court said, I will quote, the protection and promotion of human rights under the rule of law is essential in prevention of terrorism. Here comes the role of law and court's responsibility. If human rights are violated in the process of combating terrorism, it will self-defeating. Terrorism often thrives where human rights are violated, which adds to the need of strengthening action to combat violations of the human right. The lack of hope for justice provide breeding grounds for terrorism. Terrorism itself should also be understood as an assault on basic rights. In all cases, the fight against terrorism must be respectful to the human rights. Our Constitution laid down clear limitation on state actions within the context of the fight against terrorism. To maintain this delicate balance by protecting core human rights is the responsibility of the court in a matter of like this. And therefore, the various was not granted. So this was the thought process for terrorism. If we thought how human right and this rule of law can be, Indian Constitution prescribes Article 21. No person shall be deprived by his personal liberty until procedure established by law. When we talk about this, there is a discussion for it when there was a judgment from the state high fall, then District Magistrate Jabalpur, Additional District Magistrate Jabalpur, Shivkant Shukla, Madhya Pradesh High Court, this was a judgment during the emergency when the emergency was imposed here, and the issue was whether the fundamental right can be impinged during the emergency. High Court said, it's a very small judgment in one paragraph, two paragraph, it lightly said, no, it can't be. When this came for challenge before the Supreme Court, in old days, this was a verdict of 4/1 at that time. And at that verdict, it was said, reversing that judgment of the Madhya Pradesh, it was said, no, it can be suspended during the emergency. See the rule of law establishment, how it came back. In the judgment of K. Puttuswamy in 2017, 9 judges bench considered this aspect, how this can be done and how rule of law can be established. Is it possible that the fundamental right enshrined by the Constitution can be arrested during emergency? At that time, though the Supreme Court was examining the issue of right to privacy as a fundamental right under the Constitution, but then embark upon, and that judgment has been set aside by the 9 judges bench. And the Supreme Court said at that time, the judgment rendered by all 4 judges Constitution in majority in ADM Jabalpur versus Shivkant are seriously flawed. Life and personal liberty are inalienable to human existence. Once we talk about human right, and once we talk about personal liberty, and we can understand that that can only be possible by way of maintaining the rule of law, none else. Now, looking to the time spent, I am going far from my time. So, if we go to concluding, I would like to share something. Most basic question is not what is best, what I thought. Most basic question is not what I thought, but who shall decide what is best. So it is a time today we should decide what is best, and that we have to go for. If we see to this, I say, let us take this opportunity of gathering here, then discussing on the issues, then we should forge a path forward, one in which economic governance and the rule of law are not mere aspirations, but active living forces and derive global stability, justice, and peace. The task before us is great, but the reward of success is even greater. A world where global economic governance is governed by the rule of law and where terrorism finds no safe harbor, With that, I formally open this session and invite all participants to engage in discussion, which I am confident will be of highly productive and insightful. Thank you very much for inviting me, calling me. Thank you, everyone.